Hey, everybody, happy Valentine's Day. Woo! I'm going to do that again. Happy Valentine's Day. You are live on Shally's Alley. It's Friday, February 14th. Yeah, some people say it's a made-up holiday, but you know what? There's actually history to it. There is some history, so it's legit. It may not be a big holiday. However, it's a really good opportunity to tell somebody that you love them and go out and have a nice date. I'm going to go out to a really nice Greek restaurant with my wife. We have 2 kids and they're teenagers, and so it's kind of hard for us to get a night out. But one of them is in Maine skiing and the other one has a date of their own. So we get, the house to ourselves, which means, of course, what are we going to do? Leave the house, right? But anyways, happy Valentine's Day to everybody out there. Remember to tell somebody that you love them. And hat tip to one of our guests, Christine, who said, you should put a little note up that says Happy Valentine's Day. So if it weren't for you, I would not have thought of that. I would have probably just mentioned it, but I wouldn't have the image and all that. So fun stuff. Okay, well, who are these people on your screen? Well, my guests today are from an organization called Rogue Hire. That is not, however, why I invited them. I invited Ryan because we met a couple times. Actually, Christine and I also met, and we were just chatting about, stuff. Ryan's expertise is in the attraction side, marketing, and Christine's expertise is in the acquisition side, sourcing. And we were just talking about healthcare, and Rogue Hire specializes in teaching recruiters how to do healthcare sourcing and recruiting, founded by founded by Dave Zari. I believe he's the founder, right?
Yep.
Dave and I go way back to, oh my God, I don't even know how long. And so long story there. So that's how I ended up chatting with Ryan, and one thing led to another. And we're like, you know what? This is worth talking about on Shally's Alley. So here we are. Healthcare recruiting. First of all, say hi, Ryan, Christine.
Hi, everybody. Hello. I love it. It's a dream to be here. Bucket list.
Absolutely.
Bucket list item. Awesome. Me too. Oh, look, we got Happy Valentine's Day from a user too. Yay. Oh, we got hearts from another one. Nice. Thanks, Haley. All right. So tell me, just kind of maybe I want to start a little hard here, but that's okay. Everybody in recruiting says, "Oh, my jobs are different, my roles are different, my positions are harder." Everybody always, keeps like, "Oh, mine are harder than yours," whatever. Okay, every job, every rec has its own challenges. Some recs take longer to fill than others, but in healthcare, I seem to hear a lot about we're really, really, really different. What exactly is so different about healthcare? Is it really, really different?
Well, I've been a full life cycle recruiter. I've been a sourcer. I've been in leadership. So I feel like I've done the roles, and I've been in a lot of different industries: healthcare, biotech, insurance, and then just some other generic stuff when I was doing like commission only.
Headhunting.
Headhunting back in the day. See, I forgot
it's okay.
the name
We can say
already.
headhunting here.
Headhunting. Yeah. But I don't know if I'm going to make some people mad, but I think all jobs are hired. I think
I know that's what I'm saying. All jobs are hired, but you hear a lot about in this industry. You hear a lot about like, oh well, it's a lot more challenging because they're not on their computers, whatever. You can't use LinkedIn, blah blah blah.
That's a good point. You got to use your social media a lot more,
right?
For sure.
I would say the same thing for pretty much every other job.
Well,
so
but I feel like it's almost even easier, I think, because we at healthcare, almost everybody needs a license or a certification, and those can be found online, right? So it
Yes, I
makes
know
it
that. Very good
you can
point.
nice
Yeah.
you can identify people a little easier. Again, all jobs are hard, but it's the process I think that is the same. So whether I'm looking for a physician or a nurse or a
Okay.
software developer or whatever, it's kind of like the same process. I do my pre-search, right? I plan my messaging, I plan my keywords, I do my search, I do my engagement, boom, right? So the process I think is the same too. I mean,
A
when
lot of that sounds a lot the same, but the engagement, let me ask you this, because
Ryan, yeah,
where that's probably where I get the most. I'm as a consultant, I go out and I help. You're out there teaching people how to do this. I actually go out there and help build teams and build organizations from a strategic level. And a lot of times when I'm working with these teams, the recruiters and the sourcers will say things like, "Well, the response rates are really low," and so you know everything else you talked about, the pre-search, the campaign, all that makes sense. But then when you prepare for the outreach, do you have to like triple your numbers, or what kind of response rates do you get? What would be considered um, par, for response rates? Not exceptional, not low, but what would be like, you're doing okay if you get what, 30% replies, 40%, 50%, what?
I'm happy if one person responds to a campaign, and I always say that one is good. It's one more than you had 5 minutes ago. So I do think that that
That's a
part
good
is tough.
point.
But
Well,
Ryan
one out
might
of a
get more
hundred or
numbers.
one out of 1,000? Ryan, what do you think?
Yeah.
I mean, oh man, response rates are going to vary across, the multiple different challenges you're and campaigns and modes of communication you're using. To your original question, I just want to touch on some things I think are kind of unique about healthcare, right? And I think the biggest thing when I'm talking to TA leaders dealing with these challenges, the biggest thing that sticks out to me is kind of the burnout and retention. Healthcare is super high stress, from their environments to dealing with long hours, emotional demands. So that burnout leads to high turnover rates, which also equal retention challenges. And then you mix in kind of the cultures and values and how to differentiate from each other. So that's another challenge in healthcare, from like a sourcing to an employer brand to recruitment marketing point of view, is healthcare systems all have similar values, goals, and objectives, right? It's all about delivering high quality care. It's all about empathy. It's all about patient satisfaction. So all these hospital systems are solving similar problems, but how do you sound different? How do you differentiate yourself? How do
Okay.
you speak about your opportunities in a way that candidates view you as different, right? How do you create that differentiation by being specific, attractive, different, authentic?
Okay, so I get that. So what I'm hearing is this. Pardon me, but for the folks that know my show, I love to synthesize and bring things together. That's kind of my thing, anyway, or at least I like to pretend that it is. What I'm hearing you say is the hell with response rates, but what's really different is that each of these, like say for example, hospital systems, each clinic has a different culture, different environment, different settings. So even though you work for big corp, healthcare, every one of those, areas, you have to have different marketing style, different messaging. Your communications need to be specialized because it's very nuanced. So what I'm hearing is it's harder for that reason. Even though you didn't answer my response rates question, you did sort of answer that. Why is it harder? But
Yeah,
so I
I
think I
say
got that correctly.
if I
But
make you
what
feel
is the
better.
response rate though?
Yeah. So okay, if you look at maybe 100 people, you send out maybe 100 messages.
Hmm?
But the thing is, I just want to say this: that sourcing, that we try to teach it within the Recruiter Academy, which is owned by Rogue Hire, is one-on-one personalized concierge messaging. So whereas
Hmm?
recruitment marketing, might be doing more mass emailing,
Yep.
in sourcing, it's really a one-to-one. But to make it easier, let's just say you send out 10 messages.
Yep.
You're doing really great if 3 or 4 respond and say
Okay.
anything, whether they're not interested or they
Maybe
are
later, not
interested.
now. No, thank you.
Because
Okay,
we really
gotcha.
love no thank yous.
Gotcha.
We love no
And
thank
of
yous
course,
returned.
the more you personalize, the more you target. I mean, I teach this to clients as well. The more highly targeted you have, geography, job title, level, your response rates are going to go higher, and personalization and all that. I was just curious as to, is it really that much less response, right? Because in some industries, 30 to 40% is really good, and in some industries it's not really good. So it sounds like the difficulty really is in the nuance of communicating the culture and this organization's unique environment, and that's not the big, with corporations like a Google, you have a company culture, but with what you guys are working with in your industry, each hospital, even though they're all part of like Baptist healthcare, each one has its own culture, its own specializations, its own reasons why someone might want to go there, if it's a magnet or if it's research or whatever. So
Yeah.
okay, so it is harder for real. And Brian, you got a heads up on the dog.
Making the cameo.
Yeah, that's right. So it is harder. Okay, cool. I appreciate that. I know
You're
it
back
was
there.
kind of putting you on the spot there. I know it was a hard question, but you didn't think it was going to be easy coming here, right?
No, that wouldn't have been no fun at all.
Okay, so now let's go back to everything, right? Recruiting is full of myths, and a lot of that is just freaking BS. Let's just call it what it is. Everybody has to have their own spin on it, whatever. There's a lot of myths. Which industry best practice, I'm using air quotes for those of you that are listening, best practice. By the way, funny side note. So I was at this gigantic conference once. I was in the audience, and I think it was like 1,000 people in the audience. And there was a panel on stage. And I didn't know anybody on the panel. The panel member, the runner, whatever, the person that's like the moderator, the panel moderator asked the panel a question. And the question was, what is the definition of best practice, right? And I was expecting somebody on the panel to answer that, but they all were like stumped, like, huh. So I was like, come on, that's a softball question, right? I'm in the back, and I just yell out, totally rude, but it was like literally dead silence. So I'm being totally rude. I yell out, a best practice is a collection of mistakes other people made when they arrived at what works for them.
Yeah, that's good.
And everybody was like, oh, that's harsh, but that's so true. So even though I'm using best practice, you and I know, especially after what you just said, every clinic, every hospital is going to have a different best practice. But there are some things that people talk about in our industry that are like the standard or whatever. So what standard best practice makes your eyes roll to the back of your head?
Well, the first thing that really just grinds my gears is people who think sourcing is fast, right? Oh, we don't have anybody on this. Put sourcing on it. And we're not fast. Sourcing's laborious. But I look at, like, if you talk to an executive and they're like, hey, my recruiters are filling 15 jobs a month and sourcers are only filling 4. So why don't I just hire more recruiters? Shouldn't that just take care of my problem, right? That kind of grinds my gears too, because they don't understand the sourcing that takes time, investment, and has a long-term payoff. It's rarely fast. So that's probably the thing that irks me the most.
And Tawfiq, thank you for that question. I couldn't have softballed that any better. Literally, you just got the answer right there. I mean, that is the answer. Christine said, the question is, evidence points to a 13 million nurse shortfall by 2030, assuming in the United States. Curious to hear your thoughts. And honestly, I think the best answer is what Christine just said, which basically is sourcing, right? Recruiting is only part of the problem, not the solution. I mean, not problem. Sourcing is the other part. So when you have a shortfall, you can't count on people coming to you, right? When it's the opposite, when you have lots of candidates and few jobs, then you can just sit back and let your inbox do the work. But when there's fewer candidates and more jobs, you got to go out and you can't wait for them to come to you. So that's literally sourcing. And going out and finding people is never going to be faster than posting an ad and having 2,000 people apply instantly.
Yep. Yeah. That's it, I think we have to just educate because people even in talent acquisition don't understand what sourcing is don't understand the investment that you can work when you first start sourcing. Let's say your organization that you're just starting up a sourcing team, that it'll probably be 90 to 120 days before you start seeing your first hires rolling in. To ask a company to make a 4-month investment and see nothing from it, that's a hard thing to swallow. But the results come, and the results are keep rolling in after that. And
there's a long tail. Yeah.
And this is a consumer driven market. And if you don't connect with people like consumers and you wait for them to apply, you are behind the 8 ball. You need sourcing. It's a secret weapon.
Yeah. Ryan, you were quietly raising your hand over there.
I wanted to piggyback on that. I think one of the common misconceptions is that there are strategies that are easy, one click of the button in recruitment marketing that can find candidates where candidates are, where they're living, breathing on a daily basis, things like programmatic job advertising. And the truth is, while I'm not, bashing these tools at all, they're still very actively in-tuned and created to find the active job seeker on job boards, aggregators, social sites. So the reality is, without a multi-channel approach that is very deeply rooted in sourcing, right, Christine, but also other best practices like having a candidate rediscovery program and mining your existing database, looking at boomerangs, looking at your alumni, having other types of advocacy and ambassadorships and culture of care types of programs, and diversifying your marketing strategy beyond just the job boards and aggregators, you're not going to find candidates, where they are. So you have to adopt, some of those
basically,
strategies.
bottom line is, what I'm hearing here is, bottom line is, if you just sit back and expect them to come, that may work for sometimes, it may not work. Other times they may work for some people. It may work for, you may fill some jobs. But to do your job, you're going to have to A, go out and find them, and B, approach them the right way. And in order to do that, you need the content. So it's a two-pronged, you can't have one without the other. In other words, if you just post a bunch of crappy jobs, you're not going to get the right candidates to apply anyway. So you do have to have good content. You do have to have good branding. So I'm hearing kind of, one's dependent on the other, and it's a symbiotic relationship, which, by the way, is what I've always maintained, is that sourcing is a specialization within recruiting. And here we have a living example. Both of you are highly specialized in an area. Christine is highly specialized in the identification, and Ryan is highly specialized. In fact, has a long history of experience outside of recruiting in digital marketing, digital media. So his specialization is the attraction side. And this is why both of you have to be, on this, because it's both sides. So
we're a good work marriage.
Yeah, but I think it's a really good example for other people that, you can't just say sourcing will solve the problem. Right. Or Christine, as you just said, you can't say, let's just hire more recruiters. Sure, you can hire all the recruiters or all the sourcers. Either way, if you have bad messaging, bad outreach, bad targeting, it's not going to work. Right. So I think that's a solid answer. Thank you for that.
For me, it's not saying that, programmatic job advertising or Indeed is a necessary evil. We're just coaching to not be over reliant, right, and have a diversified portfolio that includes
one of the tools in your toolkit, but it better be a sharp tool.
And lean into those unique things that are more consumer driven approaches that we learn from, right? I know, Christine, you're coaching sourcing teams how to leverage tools like Reddit and Quora and industry associations and these other kind of hidden gem resources and communities where to find talent where they're at.
Ryan, I want you to answer the question too, because so we heard Christine's answer, but what is in your eyes the best practice that makes your eyes roll back the hardest in your side, in the attraction side? So one thing everybody does.
I
That's
think
like,
I
oh my God,
touched
are you
on it
still
a
doing that?
little
Why?
bit. It's, for me, again, it's kind of that over tools, in addition to maybe putting too much of your eggs in one basket. Maybe you're over investing in LinkedIn. Maybe you're over investing in Indeed. Diversify your
And you're putting all your
portfolio
eggs in that
and
basket. Got it. Okay. Right.
and lean into some of the emerging technologies, especially that are driven by AI. So think of your AI sourcing tools. Think of your
Drop a name.
referral
What is that
automation.
emerging technology? Referral automation.
On the
Okay.
AI sourcing side, there's a lot that we lean into. I think
No, I
Betterly
like that
does
referral
great
automation. Tell me more about referral automation.
referral automation. That's leveraging tools that can sync directly with your existing database. So think of your ATS, think of your CRM, and resurface those best fit candidates by using ranking scoring algorithms right into your sourcing. So while you're sourcing outbound, you also get delivered candidates that have previously applied. I think the benchmark from our last year's study of how long a candidate has typically sat in your database is something astronomical, like 492 days since the time they originally created a profile.
That's nothing.
Right? But the story is, as part of your strategy, you should have processes and strategies in place to resurface that hidden talent and have practices in place to continually
Mine your own
engage
data,
and
basically. Find the candidates that
that,
you already have,
yeah,
basically. Yeah.
the nurturement, the re-engagement, keeping that relationship, I think is huge.
Yeah, I'm glad we clarified that, because I was thinking you were talking about employee referrals. So that's another
Employee
that's another
referrals
area.
too is also huge
Automation
too.
for employee referrals. Yeah, I was wondering if that's where you were going to go. But yeah, I'm glad you clarified that. Recruiting tech vendors. We talked about this in the last meeting, and since you guys are out there what's cool about talking to people like you on the show is that sometimes my guests are leaders that have been working inside of a corporation, and for the last 3 4 5 years their focus is how to hire for this company. But you guys have this broader experience where you like how to hire for, sure, it's healthcare, but it's like multiple companies. So I'm sure you get to see a lot of what vendors promise. But I want to get real. What is one of those vendor promises? You don't have to drop in names. I don't want to offend anybody. But what are one of those promises that vendors make that is like literally overhyped, overpriced, and downright just useless that you've encountered? You're like, come on, you're selling me that still? It doesn't deliver, right? So and again, I don't mean a company or a brand. I mean,
Right.
what is one of the promises that they make that just always just falls short?
Ryan is the expert on the vendors, but I do have one that I'll squeeze in here. I'm waiting for the day where CRM vendors understand that sourcers use it, the system, not just recruitment marketers, and that I care about open rates and click rates. But could I please just have a candidate reach out, sourcer
Oh
submit,
my
that
God.
kind of thing? That's
Oh
what
my
I can't
God.
stand.
That is so awesome. That is
Yeah,
like spot on. Oh my, if I had $1 for every CRM that has been focused on marketing,
yeah,
no offense, Ryan, but like
yeah.
we get it.
We
We get it. It's all about the. I get it, but where's the sourcing side? These
yeah,
CRMs never had that. I've always had to like hack my way through. I feel like an explorer hacking my way through the thick forest in the CRM system to try to figure out how to make it work for sourcing, because it's not, you don't just send out 10,000 emails, folks.
right.
Oh my God, that is so freaking hilarious. Thank you for that. All right, so yeah, I mean, best answer ever. I think we could probably just end here. But Ryan, what is the promise that a vendor makes that we should bury in an unmarked grave and forget about forever?
So for me, I'm not sure if I can nail it down to one promise, but the biggest point of frustration for me, I would say, leans into ambiguity. So especially in this age where AI is emerging in everything from the initial screening process to outbound sourcing to scheduling to candidate matching. It's kind of everywhere, and there's a lot of development within the industry, right? Point solutions are creating more solutions. They're becoming multi-purpose tools. They're integrating with other talent intelligence tools. They're starting to get gobbled up by CRMs and other talent platforms. It's just this evolving space, and it's really tough to keep up with that. And I think often the gap is more lack of transparency in exactly what they do and how they solve problems. And when you approach
Okay.
them, being transparent and honest about what they can or can't do. I think they're very quick to being like, yup, I can check 2 or 3 of these boxes and I'm going to fake the rest and kind of take you down a rabbit hole, which can be frustrating for talent acquisition leaders that may be working with a specific CRM or have specific goals and objectives that they need to meet, right? They have a checklist for a reason.
Yeah. So yeah. Again, what I'm hearing is the practice of, geez, I want to say overpromising. So I mean, it's not any one thing as much as just a way of marketing their stuff where these vendors tell you, oh yeah, we can do this and this, but then they don't really tell you how, or like they can do it, but only if you buy an add-on, or they can do it, but only if you spend a ton of money on consulting to customize, or they can do it, but it's really not that great. Right.
Yeah.
So yeah, I gotcha. All right. I hear you. Folks, you can connect with Ryan on LinkedIn
Overindulgence
here.
and
Go ahead.
I was gonna say that
Oh,
the last piece was kind of the overindulgence of buzzwords. We see
yeah,
AI, machine learning, and things everywhere. And yeah,
buzzword
sometimes
bingo.
there's elements of it. Sometimes it's not, but it can be kind of nauseating. To your point, Shally, I wish they would be more under the hood. Let's show us how these things work and how they solve problems versus kind of trying to create this mystique and hype.
Speaking of buzzword bingo, um,
Love it.
there's they'll throw out like candidate experience, and this isn't just vendors now. I'm going back to everybody, right? We got candidate experience, we got diversity and inclusion, we got AI powered, we got but and every year is a different flavor. I've gone to a lot of these, and you remember we talked about this for HR
Right?
tech, where we're like, man, it just seems like everybody here just crossed off the last thing on their bullet list and put now powered by AI like on the same product, right? But what is it from both of you? What is the gap between what companies, vendors, companies, employers, what they say and what they actually do? So what is the most overhyped concept that recruiters pretend to care about but just fail to execute?
Mm.
And if you can't name names, just a pattern,
Mm.
right? Now, not just the vendor, but like, what is one thing that you can think of that we're always like, yeah, we do that, but really we don't.
Ah,
I
pipelining.
think for me,
Oh my God. You need to come back to my show. I'm having you back again. It's like that was like
Pipelining.
spot on. There's
Yeah.
exactly, man. Yeah, pipelining.
People
So they
think
say
they
they're pipelining,
pipeline.
but really it's just a list.
Yeah, just a list. I got a list here of people on the ready, right? And true pipelining is when a candidate tells you no, that you log it, you schedule your next connection with them, and you follow up on that and you stay in touch with them with research or company information or just whatever. That's how you're kind of piping lining so that when they are ready, when that day they walk into their job and they're like, well, screw this. Where's Christine's email? She's been hunting me down for months now. She's my friend now, right? And that they connect. So the act of pipelining requires action. It's more than just people sitting in a database.
Yeah, in fact, I would say the contacting part. You're right. A lot of folks miss out on. Sure, I'll be interested in 6 months, and then they don't put something on their, reminder or whatever and reach back out, or at least put them on a list to be contacted later and actually do it. But I think there's another part of it too, which is continuing to engage in between. So like they can say, hey, ping me back in 6 months, but there's nothing wrong with, in a month or two, sending them a quick follow-up. Hey, just wanted to know that we did this, and this is going on in the industry, whatever, just information, and keep them, people talk about keep it warm. So pipelining is the one that people give lip service to, but don't
keep them warm. I love you when you just said keep them warm. So that goes right with it. What is keeping them warm? You better be keeping them warm, right? And by the way, nobody really stays warm. You got them or you don't.
6 months later, you ping them and they're like, "Who the hell are you?"
It's keeping warm.
Yep. Oh man.
So the one that I have, Shally, is and maybe it's a political boulders within TA organizations, but I think I get asked a lot, what are simple ways to create efficiency? What are simple ways to use technology to make our lives and our jobs easier? And there's some real fast, easy,
like what?
Easy wins, like the idea of an AI note taker, which recruiters, sourcers action on that, and a lot of hesitancy to kind of get out of their own way. And again, maybe Christine, you have an opinion on that. It might just be boulders set in place by the organizations themselves. I wish I saw more energy and more excitement into adopting new tools and technologies that are out there.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think sourcing is usually where that gets done a lot of times, because they have especially if they're not tied to a specific rec and have, are tied to making hires, but it's part of their job. At least with my teams, when I've built them and when I advise companies, I say, part of the sourcer's job is to go out there and spend 10% of their time trying new things, like you said. And experimenting, because discovering an opportunity is how you're going to get an edge. If you just keep doing the same old, you're not going to get anything new. But I do want to comment on the note taking. You mentioned note taking apps, and I know there are a lot of options out there for note taking apps. However, it's coming from privacy and compliance and other issues that I've had to deal with regarding note-taking apps. They aren't safe yet. There's a way to make them safe, but they really aren't. There's too many opportunities for something that is on the record to be used the wrong way, to the detriment of either party or both parties. So it's similar to recording calls, right? There are places where you can have single party recording. In other words, I can just record the call and not tell you. And there are other states and regulations where that's not allowed. But either way, whether it's legal or not legal, the moment that you have that recording, it now becomes something that could be used as evidence.
Discoverable.
Yeah. And there's discovery. So sometimes, people say things by mistake. And I'm talking about like an interviewer leaking some kind of, secret formula accidentally. Now, if nobody wrote it down, then that's okay. So I heard it and I can forget it, but it's written down and it goes in a database somewhere, or there's just too many errors. So I think there's a very real reason why people hesitate with note-taking apps. Not just the legality of it. In some states, it would actually be straight up illegal unless you literally disclose that. But even where it's legal, there's some legal entanglements. However, there's other, and there's an ethical way to do it, right? There's other technology out there, though, that I agree with you it's like we're able to use it, but why are we not using it? We're able to use it, but why are we not? What is the holdback? I don't have the answer to that. I run into it a lot. I'll just give you an example. Calendaring. Okay, you would think a very basic system. It's been, Outlook and the whole office environment has had the ability to delegate calendars and have other people help you with calendars since long before AI. But now with AI, and I'm using air quotes again, because it's really not intelligent. It's literally just a taskmaster. It's so much easier. You don't even need a fully dedicated person to do your calendaring. It's so much easier to share a link and even to have a bot. A lot of these chat bots have the ability to find time on your calendar based on rules and stuff like that. And that's one that doesn't really have, I mean, there's very little risk there because you can expose only a certain part of your calendar. For example, on my Google Calendar, I can choose I only want Mondays and Tuesdays from this time to this time. Nobody can see my calendar. It only shows availability if I'm available, and I still have to accept the invite. So but it's so much easier for me to send the link than it is to be like, well, I'm available this day, and then they don't get it until the next day. And they're like, oh, sorry, that day's already in the past, and back and forth. So let me ask you that. Why don't organizations use more of that really basic stuff that it really has very little risk? What's the roadblock, in your opinion?
I could say that about 1,000 tools. If I could count on my hand the number of times I've given technology to a team or a group and had the low adaptability.
Yeah.
And I think, and we could probably, this is a whole other conversation probably, but there's a lot of change management in there, and people get into their ways of doing things, and they don't like to make it different, right? So there's a whole psychology behind it. But from the candidate side, man, just when someone sends me a calendar leave to do anything, I don't care if it's a doctor appointment or the guy who's fixing my radiators, or whatever, send me a calendar leave, and you're getting your tires done that way now. Just kind of click on a link and get brand new tires. Chef's kiss.
So much easier.
But they forget. Yeah, I think we sometimes forget. The change management part in there, and to make it a little bit easier for our recruiters and sourcers to understand. We shove things on them without prepping them, preparing them, and doing the things that we need to. I mean, I know it's some soft hand holding, but they deserve it. They deserve to know what's the change, why are we changing it, give it a little pilot example, grab some ambassadors who can champion it, and sometimes we choose technology that doesn't fit. We didn't ask the recruiters and sourcers first if this was going to be useful, right? Now, and when we do, and we let them have a say.
Like, now you have to use it. Here you go. And we're going to measure you if you don't use it.
Yeah, let them be on the part of helping to choose vendors, right? I think that is some of the mistakes that we've made on leadership side every once in a while.
That's a really good point. So it's about, we're giving them more stuff to do and not taking other things away, or we're giving them something that they have to use even though they don't really understand why, or maybe don't even want to use it, or didn't have a choice in using it. So that's a good point. Yeah. Because I just thought of something. You can kind of use, even if your company doesn't have a like a standardized system, or your ATS doesn't have that, you can still use Calendly for your own calendar. So you're right. It may not be rolled out to the entire organization, but as a recruiter, an individual recruiter, you could, and probably a lot of folks do, just use it for their own personal calendar, and then they synchronize with their work calendar so that it makes things easier. Good point. Let's switch to hiring managers. If you could magic wand, if you could wave your magic wand and force every hiring manager in the Western Hemisphere to unlearn one bad habit, what would it be? Discuss amongst yourselves.
I would make them take one of the the lady, the Marie Kondo, who says, "Does this bring you joy? Right? If not, throw it away." I wish they could all take a class like that to just look at a resume and say, "Does this bring me joy? Yes." Schedule the interview right then and there. If not, move on. I think the hiring managers need to know that this is a game of hours and not days.
Okay. All right.
Ryan?
That's a little harsh, but I like it. Hours and not days. So you're basically saying the hiring manager needs to, within hours, take a look at your resume, make a decision right away. And not
our whole occupation is talking about ghosting. Ghosting to me is a trigger that you don't understand the market, because ghosting means you took too long to get back to them. I know that I guess it is harsh, right? But a lot of our sources and recruiters know we got to move faster, but we have failed them in educating them on the market right now. And we have to do a better job of educating the hiring managers. Let me know, this is a passive candidate. That means by the time they wake up tomorrow, they might have changed their mind. If you're interested, we should really connect with them today. This is a hot product, right? So that's it. And it's not all the hiring managers' fault. They don't know our world. We have to educate them.
You hit a nerve. We got a bunch of comments on it. Like, definitely hit a nerve. Awesome. That's really
For
cool.
me, I think I would like hiring managers to kind of follow our lead in taking more of a candidate-centric mindset, right? So flip the script from that employer-centric perspective, how we speak, to a candidate-centric, why us, why now, and kind of embrace that what's in it for me storytelling. I think often hiring managers don't realize that from the candidate's perspective, we're often commodities and that they have choices, right? And it's all about differentiation and our unique selling points.
Okay. I'm thinking about that. All right. One thing I don't know if this is something that is commonplace or not. I always tell customers to do this, but it's to get something from, it's piggybacking off your point there. Get something from the hiring manager about the hiring manager. In other words, we're always used to talking about the company, the brand, the employment brand, the EVP.
Mhm.
Whether you do it or not, it's definitely talked about. But I like to go one step further and ask the hiring manager what their EVP is. In other words, you as a boss, you as a leader of people, what is your selling point that I can, so that way when I'm talking, it's more about when I talk to candidates, because I don't usually put that in the marketing, but when I talk to candidates and I teach recruiters how to talk to candidates, they are able to highlight or express something positive about the person they're going to be working with, because in my opinion, matters more than the employment brand, which may or may not even apply to this department, especially as you were saying, some of these organizations that have like multiple cultures across the board. So I always like to ask the hiring manager, what is your selling? What is your pitch? What are you good at? Are you good at managing? Are you a good hands-off manager? Are you good at teaching leadership? Are you an expert in the field? Like, what is your selling point?
I love that. If I would have had to pick a quick number 2 on that, I think that's a really important part, because we don't just quit jobs, right, for bad leaders. We quit jobs for because
Right,
we
you
want
hear
a
that.
different hiring manager, right? You hear it all the time. And people want to belong, especially the younger generation. They will take 50 cents less an hour for an organization that's going to make them feel like they are part of something and that they have aligned ideas and ideals. So I do think it's really important that we get from the manager. In sourcing, we do something called a QIAW. Is a candidate qualified, interested, available, and what matters most? That's our screening. So why
I
don't
thought
we
W was for winning.
and winning? But why not ask the hiring manager? Listen, don't tell me I'm a great communicator and I really I'm a people person, right? Give me something that matters. Give me something of substance, because the
Yeah.
candidates want to hear it. And it also is helpful in a pre-close. But we have to provide managers data. One of the things Rogue Hire does is provide a whole lot of data to our clients so we can show them, maybe from the time we start talking to a candidate passively till they apply, right, or till they're submitted, all this time that it takes. And if they can start seeing some data here on the effort that it's taking, then we can start have the understanding on their side. Okay, based upon who's available, there's only 17 of these candidates in the marketplace. I'm going to try to talk to all 17, but if all 17 decline me, what's our round 2? What are we going to try next? And getting those pieces of information to help people in healthcare, it's always a lateral move. You want an RN here? Guess what? They're an RN there. You want a lab tech here? Guess what? They're a lab tech there. And you're not going to get candidates to switch jobs without what you had just mentioned there, without the you're going to switch jobs because this manager's better, period.
Yeah. Ryan, let me ask you this, is kind of turning this back to the marketing side. If Christine and I have been able to obtain a pitch from the hiring manager, I'm just going to make one up. Let's say that they're they're a certified luminary, in this industry. They know more about this industry than most people have forgotten in their lifetimes or whatever. But you know what I mean. So like that's their selling point. So this hiring manager is like real expert. We can talk about that when we're talking to the candidate. But how would you recommend, or would you even recommend putting that in the marketing, in the outreach, in the job posting, in the career site? Where else besides on the live conversation should that go?
Think there's a lot of opportunities to start. We call kind of the position driven EVP, right? Which is a layer deeper than your company driven EVP. What I think is really interesting and would love to get some more data around is companies that are starting to embed that hiring manager story into the job posting itself, right? So think of companies like Spark Start that can embed a video that is created directly from the hiring manager when that requisition is created, where they get the opportunity for 30 seconds, 60 seconds to tell their quick story. Now, let's not forget there's likely a lot of challenges to getting that adopted within the organization, right? We're putting ourselves out there transparently using video, but I think the concept is really interesting, and it creates that immediate kind of connection, that human to human, that rapport, that trust, that you're seeing the hiring manager kind of be authentic and tell their story that doesn't come scripted from their EVP, right? They're not reading off their company values. They're telling you exactly, who I am, what it's like to work for me, and why that's important. So I love the idea.
So you put it in a video is what you're saying.
That's one one
like
way.
a quote
think,
from this. Okay.
Within the job posting itself, you can create a why us, why now, or what's in it for me section. I know often job descriptions are off limits, but if you're able to at least put in like a header with some of your own personal narratives, I think that's huge. I think creating your own personal brand on LinkedIn as a hiring manager, as a recruiter, is uber important too, because you're not just selling the company's story, right? The opportunity, you're selling yourself as the person that's going to be their concierge, that's going to lead them down this path to a life-changing opportunity. So I think there's lots of ways we can do to tell that story.
Would you put it in writing in an email message somehow?
Highlighting kind of your differentiators, or like what's kind of the opportunity and why you yourself as a hiring manager are.
Yeah. I mean, is it too into? Because I mean, a job posting is about a particular opening, and so it makes sense that manager for that opening. But if you go like a level higher on the department, or it's no longer about the job posting. So how would you market that manager's EVP when it's not that manager's job? Or should you even, is this really down to the tactical job level, or is there a way to sort of make this a bigger? I think the video is probably the best idea.
Yeah.
No?
It would be in my cadence too, to a
It would be?
candidate. If
Okay.
I did let's say I'm doing a typical cadence is like a 6-6-3, and that's 4 connection points within 6 days apart, 6 days apart, 3 days apart. Okay. So if I do a typical cadence, my first connection might just be a little bit about the company, maybe it highlights about the job, and my second cadence might be about
the manager or
research or
whatever.
something. Maybe my third cadence there that goes out might just be that a video from the hiring manager, saying, "I invite you to apply to this job." Christine told me she's been pursuing you. Yeah, right. So that as part of the string of the cadence, I think so.
I love that. I was going to say, as an initial cold outreach, it might be a little presumptuous, but as building that as part of your cadence, I think it's definitely about the story, right?
I like that. Yeah. Tell me a little bit about the benchmark. I'm going to put this up here for folks. This is Rogue Hire has been doing a benchmark study for 16 years. I think this is the 16th year. And it is a benchmark to compare how your team performs against peers and other similar companies. So it's free to participate, and then of course, I assume if you participate, you get the results. So metrics, predictive indicators. Tell us a little bit about that. Again, this is free. I'm just putting it up there to help folks in the healthcare. And if you're in healthcare, you should probably participate in this. But tell us why.
Yeah. Oh, Ryan, if you let me talk sourcing, then I'll get toss it to you for the rest of it maybe then. But just from the sourcing benchmark side, there are recruiting benchmarks. Ryan is working on recruitment marketing benchmarks, but there are recruiting benchmarks specifically for sourcing. I always say, we all say it, what doesn't get measured doesn't get changed. It doesn't get done, right? And we're probably one of the very few, other than Shally, who created your little funnel many years ago, Shally. But sourcing, our benchmarks measure 6 to 7 areas, and from that we'll get a lot of ratios and percentages that'll tell us whether or not we're being successful in the row. I can tell you today how many offers a sourcer is getting a month. I know how many offers they get because I know how many offers need to be extended. I know how many offers need to be extended because I know how many hiring manager interviews they need. And from that, I know how many hiring managers interviews they need because I know how many should be submitted, and I know how many should be screened, and I know how many to reach out to.
So this is about what other organizations, gotcha.
It is mathematical based upon all of our clients, nation to nation, California to Maine, all different types of hospital systems, rehab centers, children's care, medical, academia, for-profit, non-profit. What are they doing? And from there, we have our data scientists creating the averages. Yeah, Ryan?
Yeah, so like our last year's study, we're talking 147 participating organizations. So across that, thousands of hospitals, over 6,000 data points were published last year. So roughly 9.8 million applications and 740,000 positions filled. So that's our larger healthcare TA study, but kind of same concept. If you don't understand where you're at comparative to the industry, you're kind of at a disadvantage, or you're not able to identify what your lagging indicators are, what your problems are, what your pain points are, and able to identify opportunities for change. So even, for example, let's take time to fill as a leading metric. A lot of organizations are able to easily measure time to fill. So what, right? But there's dozens upon dozens of steps in between time to fill that we need to identify to know where our lagging points are. Maybe it's with our hiring managers, maybe it's a certain point of the process, maybe it's not enough candidates at the top of the funnel, we're not getting enough applicant flow. So this benchmark study helps you kind of understand where you're average, where you're blowing it, and where you're kind of elite. And all participants get a customized scorecard, so showing their metrics bumped up against the rest of the study. So
you get the metrics and you get yours compared to that. Okay. Guys, I really appreciate you joining us today. We're running short on time here, and I always have to ask this question of all my guests. Everybody gets the same treatment. There's two. The first one of those is, who should be our next guest?
I think you need to have David Zari on.
Would he even want to come?
We'd have to pay him in I don't know. He doesn't eat cookies.
Puppies.
Puppies. Yeah, I don't even know if he likes puppies. Yeah, something. You have to pay him in self-help books. He loves reading. So if we pay him in books, give him a Barnes and Noble gift card. But David, as our founder, really sets the tone for everything that we believe in Rogue Hire. And he's brilliant, and he's just fun to listen to.
Hey, I know the guy, so you're pushing against the open door here. So yeah, awesome. All right, bend his ear and let him know that an invitation will be coming forth. Awesome. So you don't have to each give me a person, but Ryan, if you have another person you want to add.
Yeah, I'll add one, because we kind of scratched the surface on this and then moved on. But talking about employee referral automation, I believe he's actually live with us today, but I'll nominate Tawfiq Abu Kajil, CEO of Echo, the referral automation solution. He's got fantastic benchmarks.
Yeah, he actually did comment a few times here in the chat, so I know exactly how to find him. Awesome. Thank you for that. All right, and our closing question is, and you guys can, put your heads together and answer this one jointly, unless you want to have two separate answers. I like to end with kind of a tough question. If recruiting were a video game, what's the cheat code that people don't know but should use?
I defer to Ryan. I'm sorry, I don't play video games.
A cheat code is like, the one thing that lets you kind of, it's like it ensures that you can win the game because it gives you all the superpowers in the game, or
so
whatever.
Data is the final boss.
Data is okay. There you go.
I know
Data.
that. Ryan?
Data is the boss. Awesome.
For me, I think there's lots of principles out there, but management by daily improvement.
Oh, okay.
I'm going to say is one, kind of leaning into the Kaizen idea of getting 1% better each day.
Okay. All right. So, 1%. Hold on a second. Wait. Whoa. Back up. There's how many work days in a year? 260 or something like that. So you're saying every year we got to get 260% better? Damn, man, that's harsh. If you get 1% better every day, that means you're improving by 200% a year. Gosh, give me something I can achieve. How about 1% a week? I'll take that. I'm just thinking about going to the gym and like increasing my weight by 1% every visit. I'll be lifting Earth pretty soon. But I get it. So basically, what you're saying is, give yourself these micro goals and seek to increase them in easily attainable chunks. Because when you look at 1% over a year daily, that's just overwhelming. But I like that. That's cool. That's cool.
Well, thank you, Shally.
Thank you, Shally. This was
all right.
A pleasure.
Thanks. Yeah, thanks to both of you for joining us. Really appreciate your time here. And to everyone out there, if you are still willing to come back, next week we have Jeff Hunter from Talentism. Jeff he doesn't know this yet, but I'm gonna call him out on the show. And he probably isn't going to watch this episode. He is the reason I have the show, believe it or not. So kind of a big deal. I mean, not directly, but in a very traceable, indirect way. So come back. He has a company that is an HR consulting firm called Talentism. Look him up. He will be on next week if everything goes well. Until then, be kind to yourselves. Bye, everybody. Happy Valentine's Day.
Bye.
Valentine's Day.